For week 13, I created the pet store entity relationship diagram. I created a Maven project called Pet Store. I went to the Spring Initializer website and I added the dependencies for Web, JPA, MySQL, and Lombok. Then I copied the POM XML. And then I updated the project. I created the 3 entity classes, the customer, employee, and pet store. For the customer, I added the entity data, the ID, and the generated value to the customer ID, which is the primary key. And this was a many-to-many relationship mapped by customers, and it had a private set pet store. To the employee, I added the entity and at data. And for the employee ID, which is the primary key, I added the at ID and the at generated value. This one was a many-to-one. It had a join column at the pet store ID. And the relationship variable was the pet store. Pet store. In the pet store, I added at entity data. And the pet store ID was the primary key, so I added at ID and at generated value. It had a many-to-many relationship with the pet store customer. The join columns with the pet store ID and inverse columns with the customer ID. And it had a set of customers. It also had a one-to-many relationship with the employees. It was mapped by pet store and it had a set of employees. And I added the at equals and hash code and at toString exclude. I did that to the employee as well, to the employee and to the customer. I also created the pet store application in the pet store package. I added Spring Boot application. And this is the main method. I also created Spring application.run. And the sources main resources, I created the application.yaml, which has the Spring data source, username pet store, password pet store. It has the URL. It also has the JPA hibernate, DDL auto create, show SQL true, and defer data source initialization true. In my SQL workbench, I created a schema for the pet stores. I also created a user and I added the permissions. And in dbeaver, I created a connection that connects to the pet store schema. I'm going to run the application now. And it shows the output, alter table, drop tables, and create tables. And if I go to dbeaver, I refresh. It shows that it created the tables.